and welcome to another episode of Swords and Topics. I'm Rachel.
I'm Ivy.
And today we are delving back into Killing Eve Season 1, Episodes 3 and 4.
But first, we should talk about our week.
We should.
What are you reading right now?
I am currently reading The Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I think it's her name. It's an adult romance, a fake dating one, enemies to lovers, workplace rivals, all the good stuff. And she needs a boyfriend to take to her sister's wedding in Spain. I was looking for just a feel-good summer read because the weather's been uncharacteristically nice for England this week. So I fell on this one because Ivy forced me to buy it. As usual.
Yes, and I shall be expecting thank you after you finish.
Always. I am very much enjoying it, I must say.
Beautiful.
How about you? What are you reading?
I am currently reading Book of the Night by Holly Black. I'm in the middle of the book, and it's an adult sort of fantasy. It's a series. I know there's going to be at least one more. The MC is 28 and she's plus sized, and I'm incredibly excited about that. And I'm enjoying it very much. She's like a con artist who tried to live a normal life while being a bartender, but the trouble sort of always finds her. And it's so much fun. It's really good.
What are we watching this week? Except for Killing Eve.
Except for Killing Eve, I finished Sex Education.
Yay!
I don't know what to do with my life anymore now again. I binged watched it.
And did you love it?
I loved it. I loved it so much. It ruined me so many times. It made me laugh, but it ruined me and was so good. And now I don't know what to do with my life.
Yeah.
It's gone. I have nothing again.
And you're welcome.
Thank you. Yes.
For those who don't know, I influenced her to watch Sex Education, and by influenced, I begged her. I compared Sex Education to the sex lives of college girls because it's quite comedic, but also very complex and in-depth, and has a lot of feels and different diverse relationships and things. So of course, naturally, Ivy loved it, as she should.
It takes me, when I get recommendations, it takes me up to years to start it, especially when it comes to like mass media, because usually I already seen it all on Twitter. And also, if you tell me to do something, I do the right opposite.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I am.
Whereas I'm an absolute people pleaser to the core. So every time Ivy tells me to do something, I do it right away. I'm like, yes, queen.
Yeah.
I will do this for you. Let me polish your shoes. Obviously, it's a very healthy dynamic.
Precisely. Yeah. But I always enjoy it.
I do. Most of the time.
What does that mean?
I didn't enjoy Shadow and Bone.
Right, but for Six of Crows. And for the show. Yeah.
I read it for Six of Crows. What else didn't I enjoy? I can't remember now. I'm sure there was more. Oh, I didn't like the writing style of From Lukov with Love, I'm going to say, which is by Mariana Zapata. But I did like the plot, so
there you go.
It had a saving grace. Most things I enjoy. I'll allow it.
Good. What else were we watching?
I feel like I've watched nothing this week because all my time is dedicated to you.
Oh, and you know what? I have to say I enjoy it. I started working again, and I work from home. So for me to work properly and focus on my work, ironically, I have to watch something. So that's how I finished Sex Education so fast. And I started The Vampire Diaries again.
Yeah, I've been on a steady rewatch of the Vampire Diaries. I'm currently in season 2, I think.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of season 1. I'm finding out things that I forgot, things
Mm,
that are very incredibly questionable. It's not questionable,
hmm
it's just straight up fuck up. But
Yeah.
it did brought me to the times where when I was 12 years old, hiding in
Yeah.
my room in the cottage while everybody was outside.
I was that crazy bitch who just walks around the hallways pretending I was being followed by a crow, because I used to point at crows and go, Damon, because I was just so obsessed with him.
That's what
I
I
see
do
now.
even now. Yeah, that didn't
Yeah.
change for me, no.
No. Vampire Diaries is just one of those cozy little things that you can always go back to.
Yeah. It's the
I love
songs
it
for
very
me that
much.
just transferred me back.
Soundtrack. It has a really
Uh-huh.
good one.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that I've watched. Let me check my Netflix.
Have we watched a movie this
Um,
week? We haven't. No, we played and read. Oh, I watched a movie and I have things to say about it actually. I went to the movies to see Thor Love and Thunder, and I have a lot of things to say about the marketing that they chose. It
Interesting.
was an enormous amount of queer baiting on a Marvel movie. And a lot of people said, like, it's a Marvel movie, you know what to expect. That's first of all not an excuse. Second of all, like, yeah, it's true. When the movie isn't allowed to play in a certain countries, you know it's not gonna be anything extremely gay or something. Even though, for example, like Multiverse of Madness was banned in a few countries just because America had a pin with the LGBTQ plus flag, and she had two moms that just touched each other, didn't even kiss. However, the first trailer for Thor came out, and already in the first trailer, Chris Pratt's character, Peter Quill, is canonically bisexual in comic books. I think they even said in the movies too. So, and there was the scene where he said, if you feel at lost or something, look into the people of the eyes of people you love. And in the trailer, Thor was trying to look into his eyes. Then several times people ask like how gay it is. Taika said very gay. And with Taika, you know, it's gonna be safe space for queer people. However, what the movie was not gay or queer at all. The only thing that I can think of is when Valkyrie sort of said, yes, I had a girlfriend. That was one thing. And the other thing was that Korg, who is a stone creature, had a partner and they made kids together, like a male partner. That was the entire queerness in the entire movie. I was excited to go to the movies and I was expecting to see Valkyrie's character get a girlfriend, which was promised, by the way. Tessa Thompson, like in 2019 in Comic-Con, said that the Valkyrie is gonna get her queen. Kevin Feige, who is the vice some producer, I don't know, he's basically the father of these movies, said yeah we're gonna see King Valkyrie get her queen. Didn't happen, wasn't even mentioned, nothing. It is a whole another painful to go into the movies expecting to see yourself represented only to come up with nothing.
We've had the same problem with Stranger Things. I know I talk about it a lot, but I never got into this part. Like since season 1, Will has been like coded as queer. Like everyone, he's been bullied for being queer, and it's been mentioned since season 1, and it's very clear that he has feelings for his best friend Mike. But this season, they still used him as a stepping stone for the straight relationship. Like Will was the one to give Mike this pep talk about how Elle, his girlfriend, needs Mike. Um, and Will, there's a scene where Will turns away and he's just crying in the window because he's so clearly in love with his best friend, and his best friend doesn't give a shit about him. And then later on in Mike tries to get Elle back, and he says, the day I met you was when I started living. And the day that he met her was the day that Will went missing, and it was just devastating. Like, they just really treat queer characters in this show badly. Eddie Munson was very queer. He has a line that says forced conformity is what's killing the kids, and that's like, so you can view that from such a queer lens. And he died. And Robin had this whole mini subplot where she liked a girl in band camp, or in her marching band, and then she had a boyfriend, and she got upset because she saw the girl with the boyfriend, and then at the end of the show they just threw her in again and got them together, and they had the same personalities. Like, the girl who Robin liked was just Robin 2.0. They don't know how to write queer relationships, and even in this day and age they still don't know what they're doing. And I don't think they realize how much it hurts queer fans, especially when they're treated badly, like not just ignored, but treated badly. It does hurt.
Yeah. I don't think even I understood the sort of pain that you have from this amount of queer baiting and these expectations, and then just coming out empty-handed. And it didn't hit me right away, I have to say, with Thor. Like, it took me like 2 days to really look back at it and be like, wow, I'm actually angry about this.
Yeah, sometimes you need to give it a minute to settle. But you do find, even with a lot of media that's supposed to be queer friendly and that appears on the surface to be very inclusive, they're not doing as good a job as they could. And of course you expect different representations, but we very rarely come across media that shows us in a positive light and gives us a happy ending. So when we start getting that, we'll accept these other things better. But until then, it's really hard to walk out of a movie theater or finish watching a show and be happy with what we've had, when it so clearly doesn't treat the characters the way they deserve, or it doesn't spotlight our voices the way it was promised.
Yeah, exactly. It felt like, because Marvel is such a giant and they're part of a corporation that basically runs the entire world at this point. And the thing is that they do have the power to change things. They are very consciously choosing not to. And at this point, it felt like they chose to use Taika's huge queer following. And one thing yet I have to add, yes, it felt very, usually the movies feel extremely straight, especially Marvel movies. This wasn't the case. You can feel the Taika Studge there, and that the world that he created is queer inclusive. However, I finally, for once in my life, would like to see an actual storyline involving queer characters.
Not the bare minimum.
Yes.
Because if a straight person can watch it and not pick up on its queerness, then it's not queer.
Yeah. Yes.
It might appeal to the queer masses, and we might be able to find something in that. But if a straight person can go on with the day not thinking that that's queer, then it's not queer enough.
Yes. And it was upsetting also because they mentioned orgies in the movie like 3 times. They were like gods, and they had like gods yearly orgies. And when I think back on the fact that this movie wasn't banned anywhere talking about orgies, but one gay kiss in Eternals was the one thing that banned the movie in certain countries. Again, just the fact that America had 2 moms who barely touched, and a flag on her pin on her jacket throughout the movie. That was the reason why the movie was banned, but not because of the mention of orgies. And it's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating and heartbreaking.
And the thing is, Taika's, especially after Our Flag Means Death, Taika is probably the person people most associate with that kind of queer take on certain movies. So if even he cannot give us what he knows we want and need, then where are we going to get it? He has that power.
Exactly. And again, there was like Chris Hemsworth with his ass out but not a queer fucking storyline.
Yeah, it's infuriating and it's definitely exhausting. You do
Mm.
wonder when things will change.
Yes, things are changing very slowly. But let's take a look at Miss Marvel, which is one of the best things Marvel created. It's colorful, it's hopeful, it has heart, it has soul. It made every single episode made me sob with how good it was. It just gave me chills. And the story was similar to Spider-Man in that youthful finding out they have powers and being very excited about it. But it was about Pakistani girl. Her religion was represented there. There was an episode with flashbacks from, I don't know the exact word, apartheid, is it called?
Yes,
In India, yeah. And it has the lowest viewing of all Marvel TV shows so far.
Yeah.
And I've seen people critiquing it so badly. And by people, I mean white men. Even in my friend group, and I don't feel they realize it really. But one of my friends said that the episode with the past and was boring to him. Like he could go on without the episode. And I was like, that was the best episode of the entire show. You can see their history that you don't really know, especially in Europe. You don't know that much about India and Pakistan and what happened there.
And that's the thing. That's why they keep catering to like a cis white male lens instead of widening the scope. Because is it all? Do you think that Marvel marketed Miss Marvel as much as they marketed the other shows and things?
I don't think so. I don't know. It was before it was coming out. Multiverse of Madness came out. It was
right, yeah,
few weeks before that, so people were sort of still riding that Multiverse of Madness wave, even though again they critique it very strongly just because Wanda was the main character of the movie. And then now the finale came out after even the second in the second from last episode came out on the day Thor came out, and they were during the entire time the show was coming out. I feel like it was almost every Wednesday, which was the new episode of Miss Marvel, came out something for Thor. There was the countdown for Thor. It was like every day since the 2 weeks mark. It was Thor, and not Miss Marvel. Yeah.
And also, do you not think it's a problem the way that it's taken this long? And because Marvel links everything in its universe, you feel like you have to watch every film and TV show to follow it. So this show is about a little Pakistani girl, right? How old is she? Like
16.
Pre-teen?
She's 16.
Oh,
Yeah.
16.
Yeah.
So we grew up with it. So we've probably watched the majority of the films, but a 16-year-old Pakistani girl who's never seen herself represented in this universe before, why would she suddenly start watching that now? That's why the viewership is showing a difference as well, because it's taken so long to get here.
Yeah, you're so right, especially with this phase. It's phase 4. It started with Black Widow. I feel it was after it was Endgame, then there was Spider-Man, and there was the end of the first saga. Now the phase 4 has already over 100 of hours of content.
Yeah.
Wait, or was it all together? I'm not sure now, but it's much more longer than any phase before, and they didn't even establish the storyline for this saga.
Yeah.
And I've already seen some like CGI artists and companies who like specialists don't want to work with Marvel at this point because they keep rushing every single project, and so it's their work environment as of right now is incredibly toxic, which is not something surprising really. And the entire time, like with every single Marvel project coming out in this phase, people keep complaining about the CGI. I see a little bit of it. I saw the little decline in it, especially after Endgame. But it's just because their deadlines are so short, and they rely on it very much because they don't shoot on locations. They can for because things will be spoiled, right? So everything you see basically is CGI. And you can see in what movies and shows exactly the CGI is worse, where the deadline is shorter. And it's Miss Marvel. It was, I think, second episode of Moon Knight, which is about Egyptian's god. It has first Egyptian female superhero, Oscar Isaac. I don't know exactly his ethnicity, but he's also a person of color. You
Yes.
can see it with Black Widow, which is a
He's
female-centered movie.
Guatemalan.
Yeah. Oh, is
Guatemalan.
he? Yeah, great. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
see the pattern at this
And
point.
also, let's not forget that there's a paywall between for like 50% of the content now, because it used to be you go to the cinema or you wait for it to come on DVD. Now you need what is it, like £10 a month, £8 a month subscription to watch these shows.
Yes. And it wasn't
That's a
even here
lot of
until
money.
recently. We have it
No.
here in Czech Republic for a month while these shows are coming out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wonder sometimes if this will be the downfall of Disney and Marvel.
For sure. For
Because
Marvel, definitely. They're ruining each other with the fact that it's losing that sort of being so special. I love Marvel movies, but that was the thing. Like, you go to see the movie twice or three times a year. It was that such a huge event for you, and you sat there and you heard the logo, theme song, and your heart was just beating so fast because it was exciting. Now you don't have the time to hype yourself up for these movies because you have a show every other week.
Yeah.
And it's losing that, yeah.
Yeah. I'd say there's like, I say in 3 months you could probably get 2 shows and a movie out of that. Like for each 3-month period, there's that much content to consume there, and it's behind a paywall. It's just not inclusive for the people that it was supposed to be for in the first place, like younger people. There are a lot of people out there who can't afford that subscription on top of Netflix, on top of bills, on top of food, on top of anything.
And cinema.
And a lot of parents who are probably struggling because they want to give their kids enough content to consume and enough entertainment, and have to pay a certain amount of money every month to do that now. It does feel like a slow decline in that sense, and it's interesting to see, but it's also a huge shame.
Yeah, it feels like it used to be about the slow building of the stories, and I feel like recently even Kevin Feige said that he told Sony, who are making the Spider-Man movies, and now they made Morbius and are going the production for Madame Web just started. Even he told them apparently to take their time with building their own universe, and he didn't listen to his own advice. They used to do it. It was special, and you could watch like Iron Man movie without watching the rest of the movies. You could watch Captain America without watching everything else. And I do love it to be connected. It's something that I adore. I love watching. I love searching for the Easter eggs and all that. But it has to be manageable, which is not anymore.
Yeah. That's the thing, like you can make it so that it connects but also doesn't stop you from a new viewer coming and watching it for the first time and following everything. And that's one of my problems with it, because I really struggle to keep up to date on like any kind of media anyway, because I'm working, and if I'm not working I'm just trying to catch up on what I've already missed, and my brain doesn't work that way. So if I see spoilers, I'm like, I don't want to watch it now.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always struggled with Marvel, because there was, even going into it, there were so many films to catch up on before I even got to like the newer ones. It does just feel like maybe they've gone a bit too far with it now, in some senses. The TV shows especially are making it more difficult to remain caught up and enjoy and understand why they're even making them anymore.
Exactly. However, that being said, it's fantastic that more characters can appear now, like Miss Marvel
Yeah,
or Moon Knight, She-Hulk, we're getting soon, and all
yeah.
of that. Anyway,
Mm.
let's get into the episode. So, today we're talking about Killing Eve, episode 3 and episode 4. Episode 3 is titled episode 3 is titled Don't I Know You? And this episode is about Villanelle killing in Berlin and giving Eve's name at the reception, and Eve and Bill traveling there to investigate this. The episode starts off with Eve describing Villanelle because at the end of the second episode she realized she met her in the bathroom where Villanelle told her to keep her hair up, and she's describing Villanelle in the most gay way possible.
As she always does.
Yes, with even Bill watching her from the across the table with his eyebrows raised. Then Bill takes his kid to work, and there is a little
He
bit of
does.
foreshadowing with him saying, Daddy's gonna die, isn't he?
Yeah, it's very heartbreaking to rewatch that now. Because you kind of didn't expect it, even going into it, even though you kind of knew that it was going to be dramatic and a thriller and there was going to be a lot of blood, you just didn't think this lovable character would go so soon.
Also, the main character, he was one of the main characters.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, I think it's harder as well because you think that he's one up on Villanelle at first, like when he's in Berlin, when he's kind of gets his he sets his target on her, he sees her,
Yeah.
and kind of see him. You think that he's the hit, like traditionally he was the hero, she's the villain.
Yeah.
He's following her, but it just shows how good of a predator she becomes because she always finds a way to turn it back.
Also, for quite a long time, you don't know she knows about him until a few minutes later. It's you see Bill following her, and then it cuts back to Eve on the dinner with the diplomat. So for a long time, you don't know she knows about him, and then she just looks over her shoulder a little bit and smiles, and then
Yeah.
you're like, oh. But still, she goes into a public place. She goes into a club filled with people, and the last thing you expect is to see her kill the main character.
Yeah.
I have to say though, her turning around, smiling in the blue light, and then chasing him across the dance floor, it does things to me.
I understand. I understand completely. Yeah. I'm just sorry it had to be Bill.
I understand, especially because in this episode, he talks with Eve about their sexualities, and he says, I just fall in love with whoever I fall in love with.
Yeah, and we talked about that last time, how
Yes.
it's just so beautiful. Like for me, I see him as pansexual, but you can just find yourself in it. Like any sexuality can just identify with that, I feel. Especially bisexuals and pansexuals and unlabeled.
Do you enjoy when they label themselves, or when it's like, oh, sexuality is fluid, I don't use label?
Both. I think because pansexuality is not very widely represented, it feels the same to me because that's how I got that label myself. I fell in love with who I fell in love with, and I was attracted to whoever I was attracted to, and the lens of gender was never there for me. So when Bill says that, for me it feels just as good as saying I'm pansexual. But I can also see how like it would be nice to have that label because you do feel something special when somebody uses the label that you use, because from then on you can say that character's pansexual like me, and there is something very special about that. But personally, I'm good with any kind, as long as it's stated explicitly. It's not just a hint. Like
Yeah.
that person is very proud of the fact that they are very fluid in their sexuality. I think that's what resonates with me the most. How about you?
I feel like it depends on how it's handled and how
Yeah.
it's described. I can think of work moms where there was a guy who had this off and on relationship with a woman, and she finds out he's been seeing other men. And he says, he doesn't specify it, he doesn't label it, but he says something on the terms, sexuality is fluid and so is mine. And I don't like that. I didn't enjoy that. It felt so vague to me.
Yeah. Like
And
they're trying but not hard enough.
yes,
They're
especially
sprinkling
when
it in.
especially when she was very homophobic about it. Yeah, so but I just love seeing the word bisexual. It just,
Yeah.
you suddenly have this connection to this character and you can be like, oh, that's me. And that's just more special to me.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's interesting because, like, of course, we want more people labeled the way we are, but I also think it's pretty magical if they don't need labels, because
Yeah.
there are a lot of unlabeled people out there, and I thought I would be unlabeled until I found out about pansexuality. So yeah, you're right, it is just the way it's handled, and it's just a shame there's not more of a scope there for that, because you were saying in sex education, Adam comes out as bi, but everybody calls him gay.
That's my
And
villain
it
origin
seems like,
story.
yeah, it seems like they always want to be put into they always want to put people into a box. And that I think that's why I loved Bill, because he wasn't in a box. He never labeled himself. He just loved who he loved, and I loved that. But in the same sense, if he would have said, I would have been just as happy if he said he was pansexual or bisexual.
I think this is one of the examples where they handled it very well. And you said it because he was very willing, very obviously proud of who he was, and he was very content.
Yeah.
And
I mean, he's married to a woman, right? But and he has a kid, but he's an older man. He's an older than you would expect most dads of an infant. And he brings the child into work as you would expect a traditional mother to do.
Yes.
And he's quite, camp, and he's not afraid of like that side of himself, the queer side of himself. And that's really beautiful, and it doesn't define his masculinity, because he's still very much a man, and he's still very much a good father, but he's still a queer man, and that's so beautiful to see that joining of something that is usually separated into little boxes because they're afraid of the overlap.
From his reaction, it was very obvious that even in his life, it wasn't a part of himself that he would be hiding on purpose.
Yeah.
So he would just be himself unapologetically and wouldn't have the need to hide that part in front of certain people, which is what I got the feeling example in the Working Moms again, because it felt that he was very secretive about it or wasn't that open about it, which with Bill, you can feel that he was very open about it. And he even said that he and his wife, he sort of like hinted that they have sort of an open relationship, because Eve asked about his wife, and he said she has her own situation or something like that. I don't remember the exact phrasing. And he also described that their relationship was very much more of a partnership than sort of love-based relationship, that they agreed to have a child together. Sometimes they have sex, and they're great partners.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit of Evelyn Hugo in that sense. Like, I know that in Evelyn Hugo, is he called Harry?
Yes.
Harry is completely gay, but they have this child together, right? And it kind of reminded me very much of that. Like, they're not a nuclear stereotypical heterosexual family. Like, they have, it's more complex than that. And how good is it to see a different style of family for a change, and one that works, one that's positive, and one where the child isn't overlooked.
Yes. And also they for a while both have their own separate relationships. Harry was with a man, Evelyn naturally was with
Yeah.
his sister.
Celia.
Thank you. And like I was like, it wasn't so, I saw two C's there. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure where they were. And there was one second one. Anyway, and I speaking of Evelyn Hugo, I have to mention when Evelyn told to Monica that she was in love with her best friend, she was like, "Oh, you're
Yes.
gay," and she's like, "I'm bisexual. Don't put me in the box," just so you could
Yeah.
understand. It's
Yeah.
such a. I remember I was standing waiting for my bus reading the sentence, and I think I immediately sent it to you. The moment I saw
Yeah.
it, I just took a picture and sent it to you because it was such. That was one of the moments where you see yourself like perfectly, and that sort of sticks with you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's one of the more progressive ways of looking at sexuality, because you often get gay men, lesbian women, but you never really get bi and pan characters. And the fluidity that comes with that, and the fact that if a bi woman was to date a man, she would still be bi. There's still a lot of discourse surrounding that is very reductive, and again, like, it tries to put people into a box, and I love people who just break out of that box. So like, no, this is me and that's it, and this works. And that's why it hurts so much that Bill died, but also it never felt like a bury your gaze in that sense, because it spurred Eve's story more, and he was never forgotten after that. And also because there are so many queer characters in that show, they did it in a way that didn't feel disrespectful to the queer community, and that's something you find very rarely.
I feel it was because exactly there are many more like queer relationships, both with Villanelle and Eve together and separately.
Yeah.
Even in this episode, Villanelle found that American tourist in Berlin, and she took her home and told her to pretend her name is Eve. And with Villanelle, the way they presented her sexuality, it was never something that defined her, but it was also never questioned. It just were.
Yeah.
And it was very freeing to see that.
Yeah. And thinking about it now, Eve never went through that crisis where she was like, oh my God, I'm in love with a woman. She was just obsessed with her, and she fell in love with her, and it was never about the fact she was a woman.
Yes.
Well, in certain ways, of course, it was, because she was a woman assassin, and that's where Eve's obsession lies. But she never went through a crisis as a older woman who you assume to be straight just because she's married to Nico and never shows any sign before that. She never goes through that moment where she's like, I need to come out, or I need to hide this away. Like, she's very much in tune with that part of her too. And that's the great thing about Killing Eve. Like, people die, but everyone is very comfortable in their sexuality. Yes. So they're dying proud,
Exactly. Even in this episode, there is Nadia. No, it was, sorry, the next episode. But even there, she was in a straight relationship when we meet her with the very creepy guy that calls her Pumpkin. And then you slowly find out that she was in relationship with Villanelle. And that guy was like, oh, this is the ex. He didn't bat an eye that she was a woman, but that he obviously knew that. But that is just this woman. Yeah.
The power of writers to be able to write a show with no homophobia but lots of killing. Unmatched.
Until the last season.
Well, yeah, until the last season, of course. Thank you, Laura Neal, for ruining everything.
Which, by the way, reminds me, she wrote a few episodes or some episode in Sex Education, which is surprising to me.
Did you find out which ones those were?
I know it was one that I was watching, but I can take a look on which exactly.
I can't help but feel it's probably the ones where Eric cheats on Adam, or where everybody calls Adam gay when he's bi.
She
I can't
wrote,
help
okay,
but think
she
that.
wrote the fourth episode in season one, which was Eric realizes Otis has fallen for Maeve, but the young sex therapist finds himself torn when Hog Guy Jackson seeks help with his secret crush. Yeah, so she just wrote one episode.
But we will get into that further
Yes,
down the line because we have a
exactly.
lot to say about the final season.
I don't think I have a way to shut up about the first season. Like there's still too many things to say that I don't think I will ever stop. Okay, so episode 4 is titled Sorry Baby. Iconic. And it's an episode where Eve is grieving Bill and then learned that there is a mole, and Villanelle is sent to work with two other assassins, and they're tasked with killing a member of British intelligence, which is Frank.
Frank.
And Carolyn said that it's funny or sad that the mole is the one who looks most like a rodent. And I feel it's incredibly iconic.
She honestly, I'm so obsessed with the line she delivers. She is just amazing.
Yes. And especially when she delivers it with zero emotions.
Yeah. And it was great because Frank was pretty like ignorant and sexist in a lot of situations. And so thank you for castrating him, Villanelle.
Yes. Big yes.
Another great example of how we should treat figures.
In this episode, Villanelle dressed like Constantine. And there was that song that later on plays when they reunite. And she's like, happy birthday, because she doesn't know when his birthday is. And I just loved it very much. It's just such a soft scene. Only to end it up with
the relationship.
Yeah. Only to end it up with her giving him a gift with a plush toy. It did some squeaky toy. And she's like, for your daughter. And you can see the immediate fear on his face that she knows about his daughter. And I just love that very much. Because their relationship is very soft and adorable, but also there's that underline of a threat on both sides.
Yeah, which comes to a head later on in the season.
Mm-hmm.
Or next season, I can't remember.
This one, yeah. Also, this is the episode where sort of you start to see Nico's and E's relationship fall apart slowly. When Nico is like, you're lying to me about how Bill died and I want you to stop working this job. And she's like, fuck you.
As she should be. Like, I get it, but at the same time, you cannot ask somebody who's clearly passionate about what they do to stop working a job. Like, that's not how it works.
That's the thing. This was sort of, it feels like this was her end job. Like you've already been told that she studied female assassins, so you can see that this is her passion.
Yeah.
So he knew what he was getting into when they met.
I suppose he expected her to soften in her older age. And
she does the opposite.
I suppose at that time he was just ready for like the domesticated relationship to settle down. They never had kids or anything like that, and he hates that he was never the priority. But that's on him because he looks the way he does.
I mean, that mustache, come on, what did he expect to happen? Villanelle sent her Villanelle sends her expensive clothes and he has that disgusting mustache. Like,
come on now, who would you choose?
I mean,
and also it's Villanelle has to give him sex tips, so he's clearly not that good in that bed either. He can't keep it interesting in any capacity, so that's honestly on him.
And the fact that Villanelle knows what Eve wants sexually more than he does after actually having a sexual relationship with her for years says a lot.
And it's a big part of like the women versus men thing, because he's so clueless and doesn't understand Eve at the root of her, but Villanelle does. And
Mm-hmm.
it's them, but it's also like a womanly thing where you kind of know what other women want better than male
Mm-hmm.
partners do in a lot of situations.
It
Especially
feels
as you reach that age where things start to ebb and the passion dies down.
it
Of
feels to
course,
me
you'd rather
like
fuck a killer than
yeah,
your husband.
I mean, yes. It feels to me that when they met, that they like got to know each other, and that's where it stopped for Nico. But with Villanelle, she keeps digging through her and trying to find every single thing that makes Eve Eve, even as she
Mhm.
changes. Like she feels more excited to meet the other versions of Eve, while Nico
Yeah.
still thinks of Eve as the woman he met, not understanding that people
Oh,
change.
do you think she has tummy ache?
No, she just wants my attention because she's an attention whore.
Mm.
She just sits in front of me and stares at me. I loved that when Villanelle was with Nadia and the other guy, they didn't know who the target is, but Nadia said the only thing they know so far is that it's a member of British intelligence. And you could see Villanelle's face change, being scared that it's
Mm.
Eve.
Yeah.
And then like seeing when they got the picture and saw it was Frank, she was like very neutral. And it was
Mhm.
like, I know you're in love. Come on.
I love that. Yeah. I can't remember much of this episode, so I'm letting you take the lead.
Well, you do have your favorite scene in this episode.
We do. I talked about it on the last Killing Eve episode,
Yeah.
where Eve asks Frank when he's on the run from Nadia and Villanelle if he's running or crying on the phone. And he says, running and crying. And it's just my favorite line ever. Like, Frank was shitty in a lot of ways, but that line, thank you, Frank, for that.
I it was it, it was such a good line to his characters, but especially because he's such a pathetic character. Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
he I mean, I get it, he lost his wife, he said he couldn't pay for his kids to go to school, so that's why he started that um that's why he became the mole, for the money, so he could afford to send his kids to private school. But he's also
yeah,
just so very pathetic, and it's amazing to see the way he ended.
yeah. And in the workplace, every woman overpowers him. Like this, we have Carolyn and we
Mhm.
have Eve and we have Elena.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of like, shut up, Frank. Like
Yes.
they put him in his place
Mhm.
frequently. And that's what another thing I love about Killing Eve. All the men are just really quite pathetic.
Yes. And it felt also like Frank was expecting from Bill to be on his side because they're
Yeah.
women and he's also a man, but he was sticking with them, like behind them, like a little puppy. Yeah, fuck it, Frank.
Yeah.
I
In that sense, that like the straight cis white men very much do become like the anti-hero or the villain,
Mhm.
because we have Frank and we have the 12 and we have that guy that Villanelle sees in the second season, the one who takes her to Italy.
Oh, yeah. Yes. The billionaire who's a psychopath.
Yeah, and we have the other handlers that Villanelle interacts
Mhm.
with as well, and they never meet a good end.
Mhm. Which also every single of the handlers were men
Yeah,
except for Dasha.
and later Helene, right?
But she wasn't the handler, she was something above. Yeah, she was higher up.
Okay, yeah. But that's interesting because like the handler's job is not really to do much other than deliver the information.
Mhm.
Like the dirty work is left very much left to the women in that
Mhm.
sense. The men are
And every
kind of
single
very
of the
passive.
every single of the killers, and if I don't count this very pathetic guy who died immediately, it was all women. Like Villanelle,
Yeah,
Nadia, the ghost, And even like you had Pam there, and then with Helene, she had her own woman there too. Yeah.
Yeah. Things
More
we love to
female
see.
killers. Yes. This episode also felt like sort of one where you're understanding who Villanelle is, because this is the 4th episode, so you're still trying to figure her out, and that's not easy thing to
Yes.
do. And she, with Nadia, she said, like, let's kill this guy and let's go together and be together. I apologize for what I did, but now we're here and I was sent to get you. She lies to her, and you don't know that she's lying, because she's such a good actress that she even fools you, and because again you still don't know her character and who she is, only then for her to run Nadia over. And I feel like
Yeah.
that was, after Bill's dad, that was the another, like, the second big gasp moment.
Yeah. Because it wasn't just once.
Yeah.
Didn't she do it like over and over again?
She did it twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did it there and back. And she didn't, and
that's
Nadia was,
who
sorry?
I was just gonna say that's someone who she supposedly cares about. So
Yeah. Exactly. Like, they had a history, and now she's very convincing at saying that she wants her back. And without like change of expression, Nadia is screaming there in pain, and she runs her over again just to quiet her and finish her off.
Yeah, I remember that very well. And I definitely wasn't expecting it. And also it's obviously not a standard kill, because Villanelle does all of these sorts of elaborate kills, but here she just brutally runs somebody over twice in a car. And it's like, she doesn't have just one style. She doesn't stick to one mode of killing. Like, she will do it any way she wants, whenever she wants. And it's very much in the moment, however she feels she wants them to go.
Exactly. And she doesn't care about the consequences, or either from the 12 or being caught by the law enforcement. She just left 2 bodies on a road there, not giving a fuck. And I have to respect
Isn't
her
that
for
the
it.
second time that even Villanelle like come face to face as well? Isn't Villanelle kind of stood there with a gun and Eve's?
That's the next episode. This one ended up with
really?
Villanelle going after Frank, and you can see
Okay.
she was just coming up the hill, and Eve saw her, and it ended with Villanelle shooting. So you're sort of left all with not knowing if she kills her off or not. But obviously,
yeah, she could never shoot her, maybe, but never kill.
Exactly.
And isn't that just romantic?
Precisely. And she's so happy that Eve stabbed her and gave her a scar, because she said it's romantic. She said it to Gabriel in the hospital.
Yeah. And she's so right. It is.
Yeah, I have to respect her for it, for speaking her truth, which I agree with.
Her love language is violence, and as it should be.
Exactly. Yeah. So there we go. This was the 3rd and 4th episode of Killing Eve.
It was.
It's strange because the episodes are like up to 50 minutes long, and you have 6 episodes per season, but still in the one season there's just so many things happening, and it feels like I'm getting lost in it because of it. Like, I cannot pick if it was in season 1 or 3.
Yeah,
because it's just so action packed.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like, things I thought happened way after they did. Like, things that feel really like new, and where even Villanelle feel really close by that point, are actually just like the first season, and that's crazy.
Yes, but I think that's why I enjoy that so very much, because there was a lot of things happening, but it never felt too much.
Yeah,
so there was just they managed to handle the story and the time so perfectly.
Yeah. And then the last season felt like it dragged on forever, because it was just not very good.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
The thing about this show was that I always had faith in them. Like, you had your expectations, because that just comes naturally, and they still surprised you and you still love it so very
Yeah.
much.
They killed people and you still was on their side for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like they killed one of your favorite characters, but it was so like intense and so well done that it was never, you never got to the point of hating the writers for it or
Mm-hmm.
wishing it was different, because
Mm-hmm.
it was integral to the story. And that's why season 4 failed so badly, because that faith was completely tread on and broken by
Mm-hmm.
the way that they handled every storyline and
Mm-hmm.
that the relationship that at the center of it all.
Yeah.
And that's the most awful thing, because even you and me, we were like, no, they're gonna put another episode on. That wasn't the ending.
Yeah.
Like they'll do a surprise episode, because we had that much faith in the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
show that we couldn't believe that they would do us like that they would do the characters that way
Yes.
and disappoint us that badly. I'm
To
very
me,
excited for our rant episode about
yeah,
it.
me too. To me, it was just 3 years. Well, not 3 years for me exactly, but like 3 seasons of perfect faith. Like since the first episode, I was like, whatever you're gonna throw at me, I'm gonna love for sure.
Yeah.
And when the before the fourth episode season was coming out, I was watching the interviews and I was so excited. And even we were talking about like what would we like to see. Even if they both would die, I was like, I trust them. I trust them. Even if
Yeah.
both of them would die, I would be happy with the ending.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. I would have been happier if they would have both died at the end.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. I'm finding very much the same with Stranger Things, and I don't know whether I can trust them now. And I don't know if that's a product of being betrayed by Killing Eve and one of the best shows I've ever watched, because Stranger Things was very much the same. And even last season, they introduced a lesbian character, and they really started to hone in the characters. And they've always given really great arcs, and people have died when they've had to and sacrificed themselves when they've had to. But this season, the queer characters were just treated so badly, and there's rumors that Eddie, the one who died, is coming back. And it's like, I don't know if I can trust them, and that's really painful when you don't know if you can trust your favorite show anymore to be satisfying, to have a satisfying end.
Yeah.
And I guess it is a lot of pressure on a writer, but it's also a big, like, you take that responsibility on when you write the first season. And if you're not willing to continue with that way, then you're not equipped for it. And that, we shouldn't be left disappointed in the last season. That shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah. But it feels to me like creators of the show should have bigger words than the writers. So how did it come to this? I don't understand it.
It wasn't just one person. Like, people were involved in this show from the beginning and must have like provided some comment on the way that it was chosen to end.
Even the actors, like,
know.
Yeah, I don't understand. I still, my brain just can't comprehend. Like, this one person completely misunderstood the show, the characters, the entire premise of it. But there were other people. How did it come to this?
Yeah.
And it's not like they didn't have a full Twitter of theories and what people would like to see and what they expect.
But it was also not like it hadn't been set up for 3 seasons beforehand as well. They had 3 seasons worth of material to go back on for season 4. Like, we were building up to the 12. We were building up even Villanelle's relationship. And I said, even if it would have ended at the end of season 3 when they're walking away on the bridge, but they look back, that would have been satisfying to me, because an open ending where you can imagine the future for yourself is always so much better than just completely breaking everything that you've built up by using a lazy kill as a plot device.
Exactly.
But we don't acknowledge that yet.
No, we're still in a denial.
Yeah.
For 2 more seasons and 2 episodes or 4. We're still in denial.
But I hated the beginning of season 4 to begin with, because of the whole religion shit. There is nothing I hate more than like this view that religion will save your soul. And I know that Villanelle like obviously completely transgressed against that in the end anyway, but the fact that they brought it into a queer show
But again, it could have been it could have made sense in the sense that Villanelle has very simple understanding of good and bad.
Yeah.
So she's like, the only way I could be good is to not do anything and sort of do this. However, it wasn't done well.
Yeah. And where did it come from? Because the end of season 3, Eve and Villanelle were very close. Like they walked away on the bridge, but there was always that hope that they'd get back together. So why did Villanelle suddenly think, I'm gonna go to church now? Like there was just so, it was like we'd missed a season.
Yeah. Because their
Like
entire relationship dynamic changed.
Yeah. Out of nowhere. They went from closer than ever to further apart than ever, even from the first season when after Villanelle had killed Bill, Eve still was drawn to Villanelle, and you saw in the last season that she tried to cut her out completely, which was so different from the way it ended, the way it left off in season 3.
Anyway, we will talk about that much more.
We will. Yeah.
And in more detail.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Swords and Sapphics. And remember to follow us on social media and comment what you want us to talk about next time.
Don't forget to follow this one simple rule in life. Support women's rights, but most importantly,
support women's wrongs.
Exactly. And until next time, see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.